Inuzuka is a spineless leader who falls in love with the enemy princess from a rival nation but pretends to hate her. However, when he finally confesses, she shockingly agrees to date him, but they must clap in secret to avoid getting expelled from their countries. One day at the dorm, the Black Doggy House, led by Inuzuka, is in a tussle with the White Cat's house and its leader Persia. As both leaders declare an all-out war, their underlings begin fighting while the leaders stand by and give each other death stares. However, once they start marching towards each other, everyone stops to see them fight. Suddenly, a down-bad simp of Persia named Scott holds her hands and asks her to let him fight in her place. Before he finishes his Rizzler routine, Inuzuka smacks him in the face but gets countered by Persia, who says she's her own daddy and doesn't need any protection. Inuzuka says he can't lay hands on a woman or they'll cancel him on Reddit. But before Persia can respond, the White Cat's prefect Anne shows up to defuse the situation. Inuzuka hits her with the begone thought because he is under no obligation to listen to the White Cats, but when she threatens to contact the Black Doggy prefect, Inuzuka backs off. As the matter settles, the doggies hold a meeting where they explain that the prefects have authority over everyone in the house. They rely on Inuzuka to beat Persia, but the man looks like someone leaked his search history. His childhood friend, Hasuki, notices this and offers to go vacuum cleaner on his sausage, which causes a scene in the room. Inuzuka leaves the room and vents out his frustration, recalling how he and Persia have been fighting for a long time and have gotten nowhere. They may look like enemies on the surface, but Inuzuka has been dreaming of clapping Persia's for many years now. Not only does he not want to fight her, he also wants to protect her from degenerate losers like Scott. He wonders if proposing to her upright will solve the matter, but he then realizes it won't work because he looks uglier than an average One Piece enthusiast. Meanwhile, Persia is training with rookies, and Scott is glued to her like a tier 3 simp. Despite being really strong, she wants to aim higher so she can bring change to this world. She wants everyone to take her seriously, and the fact that Inuzuka lets her off easy because she's a woman upsets her. Unbeknownst to her, Inuzuka is watching and quickly realizes he's the one she's mad at. As he ponders his next move, he notices some white cats coming and quickly hides. Turns out, some of the young black doggies sprayed graffiti on their walls because someone hit them with a yo mama joke. Despite the boy throwing a tantrum, Persia treats him with kindness and advises him to become really strong so he can face his bully. Her subordinates want her to be rough with them, but she sternly tells them to hold a high standard. Hearing this, Inuzuka's simp levels go off the chart, and he decides to confess to her. He walks up to them but starts choking at the last moment and runs off, which leaves Persia annoyed. Two black doggies, Tosa and Kohitsu, observe from a distance and notice how Persia returns to her dorm alone after practice. They conclude it's the perfect time to strike her, and the white cats will crumble once she's out of the picture. A mysterious guy named Maru is listening in on their plan and comments that Inuzuka's methods have never brought any results. Later, Tosa and Kohitsu approach her with baseball bats, but the brainless clowns can't even see her because they covered their faces with shopping bags. Persia recognizes them by their voices, so they take the masks off and attack her head-on. She defeats them easily, but as soon as she lets her guard down, Maru attacks her with pepper spray, and they manage to restrain her. Using his box cutter, he slices open her plot armor and is ready to steal her V-card, but Inuzuka comes running in out of nowhere and runs away with her. The culprits run away, and Inuzuka is left staring at her fresh and ripe melons. When she regains her senses, she begins crying, and before he can explain himself, she runs off in embarrassment. Returning to the dorm, he implants his fist into the faces of Tosa, Kohitsu, and Maru for attempting to hurt Persia and ruining his chances of getting laid. He then wonders if he should sneak into the White Cat's dorm and explain himself. Just then, he gets a letter from Persia, who invites him to meet at the fountain. He walks there wondering if it's a love letter or a trap, only to find her waiting with her swords. She asks him if he was trying to clap her or save her from getting clapped, but the second option doesn't make any sense to her since they are enemies. She thinks he saved her out of pity, and to her, that's worse than getting attacked. Out of everyone, she wants him to pity her the least because he's her rival, and she can't endure being seen as weak by him. When Inuzuka says he doesn't pity her, she questions why he refuses to fight her. This takes him to a flashback of them fighting some years ago, and he finally realizes that Persia strives to be the best because she's the only child of her noble family and wants to fill the shoes of the son her parents never had. Now seeing her as a warrior woman in a world ruled by men, Inuzuka develops a new kind of respect for her and promises not to hold back. As he challenges her to a duel, she throws one of the swords at him, ready to settle their score once and for all. They charge at each other with all their strength, but as their swords collide, Inuzuka tells Persia that he's in love with her. She pauses for a second, but then starts swinging again, thinking he's just toying with her. While blocking her attacks, Inuzuka explains he doesn't look down on her and saved her because he loves her. After exchanging some more blows, Inuzuka says he wants to be by her side to help her change the world, which finally brings their duel to a halt. She slowly walks up to the guy and nervously accepts his proposal, which makes him cry rivers of joy. He explains how he always thought she hated him, but Persia says she never actually said that. She then tells him not to tell a soul about their relationship, and Inuzuka agrees, thus becoming her secret lover from that day onwards. The next day, both houses come face to face again, and while Hasuki engages in a war of worlds with Scott, Inuzuka stands there love-struck. When Hasuki questions him, he suddenly taps into the main character's persona and orders his house to charge. As Hasuki and Scott fight, they look for their respective leaders, unaware that they've run off amid the battle. Inuzuka admits he brought her away from the war zone so he can know more about her, and she begins listing her character traits like a playable character in an arc. She then begins walking away, which surprises Inuzuka because he expected couples to be more lovey-dovey. He grabs her hand and says he wants to spend more time with her because he loves her, but when Hasuki shows up, he grabs Persia by her face to give the impression that they are fighting. However, Persia gets upset and kicks him down before walking away like she's aura farming. The word spreads that Persia managed to defeat Inuzuka, but she isn't too happy about it because she knows the truth. She recalls running after his father with a bunch of flowers, only for him to slap them away. Her mind then shifts to Inuzuka, who promised to be by her side no matter what, and suddenly, she's no longer a feminist. Just then, she notices Inuzuka at her window, and even though she panics at first, she opens the window afterwards to hear him out. Inuzuka apologizes for earlier and is about to gift her something as a peace offering, only to get interrupted by Scott, who has climbed the adjacent window. The guy jumps on Inuzuka and both fall down, much to Persia's horror. Later, Inuzuka wakes up in Hasuki's lap and learns everyone is blaming Persia for the incident. Because of that, the whole squad of black doggies is heading to her dorm to avenge their leader. Inuzuka wants to go after them, but Hasuki grabs his arm because she wants him to give her back shots. Inuzuka slips away and finds Persia alone in the school grounds. She gets happy to see him, but starts running away as soon as she sees dozens of black doggies running after them. The white cats stand guard to protect her, and just a simple act of giving her a gift leads to another all-out brawl between the two factions. Inuzuka promises to fix things and give her the rosary later, but when he's attacked by the white cats, he accidentally shatters it in his hands, which sends him into a wave of depression. He grabs a statue nearby, explaining how he spent all his pocket money on the gift before swinging it like a Beyblade. At night, the guy touches some grass to cool off, but he's still very angry about destroying the rosary. He's about to throw it in the lake, but Persia shows up out of nowhere. He explains that he ruined her gift, so she asks him to row the boat for her, hoping it'll make him feel better. Once they're in the middle of the lake, she searches his pockets and discovers the broken rosary. He tells her to throw it in the lake because he'll get her a new one, but she strangely asks him to close his eyes. When he does so, she puts the exact same rosary around his neck, revealing that she already had one. She reveals she got it from her mother as a congratulations for getting enrolled here, and now she's given it to him as a token of good faith. However, he says something dumb, which kinda annoys him, so she throws him off the boat and rows back to the shore, leaving him all alone in the middle. The next day, Hasuki meets Inuzuka and invites him to a trip to Dahlia Park, but he reveals he already has plans. Just then, a brown-haired cutie shows up, and Hasuki is stunned by his beauty. As the two walk away, Hasuki falls into despair, thinking Inuzuka's heart might be reserved for the bros, not the hoes. As it turns out, the boy in question is Persia in disguise. The previous day, Inuzuka asked her to an out-of-campus date, but she deemed it impossible, reminding him that they were talking inside a confessional. However, Inuzuka showed him the disguise he had prepared, and even though he thought it was flawless, Persia thought it was the dumbest thing she had seen after One Piece. She warned him it'd all be over if their cover was blown, but when she noticed his despair, she agreed to take the risk. At present, Scott spots them from a distance, and immediately recognizes Persia, much to their panic. However, as he comes close, he gets confused because he can smell her even though she's nowhere to be seen. He then runs off looking for her, and Inuzuka is happy he can continue his date. Just then, a few black doggies ask him about the boy he's with, and he tells them he's a distant relative, Julio. When Julio says hi to them, they all feel a tickle in their funny bone, which surprises them because they're straighter than the pole your mum dances on. Soon after, more boys and girls surround the couple because they're mesmerized by Julio's beauty. Annoyed by the interruptions, he takes Persia to the main city, but the students keep following them, not allowing him to have Julio all to himself. As he fights the others for hogging rights, the girls notice how he's super excited today, which is very unusual for his grumpy aura. Later, he heads to a stall to buy a new gift, but then backs off, worried that the others might find out about Persia. He takes her to a restaurant, but it is all reserved, so he has to share her with the other black doggies at a ramen store. While eating, she accidentally drops ramen on her pants, and Inuzuka instinctively pulls them down, which earns him a smack to the face. At the amusement park, Inuzuka wants to get rid of the other black doggies, so he forces Shulio to go to the haunted house with him. Inuzuka hopes he'll finally clap her in the dark, but she gets scared and runs off, much to his sorrow. He goes after her and thinking this date sucked more than your mom when she sees a bevcy. Maru and his gang find Inuzuka in despair by the docks and kick him into the water to take revenge for when he beat them up. He is so down bad that he doesn't even defend himself, until Julio shows up and tells him to back off. Maru thinks he's a weak brat and tries to fight him, but Julio effortlessly knocks him out. Later, Persia is out of her disguise, and Inuzuka thanks her for saving him. He asks her why she ran away, and Persia reveals it's because the weight had started to bother her. Inuzuka then apologizes for giving her a bad first date, but Persia believes a date is more about getting to know each other, and by that standard, it was a big success because she saw a new side of him. She then invites him to another date, but the moment is ruined when Scott suddenly shows up. Inuzuka starts headbutting Persia to make it seem like they're fighting, which earns him another punch to the face. Later, he runs after her to apologize, unaware that a mysterious woman is keeping an eye on them. A few days later, Inuzuka asks Persia to open her schedule 3 days from now because that day will mark their 1-month anniversary and he wants to celebrate it with her. Persia teases him at first by saying she's not free, but when he starts acting like a daddy's little princess, she agrees to go out with him. The two are about to hold hands, but Hasuki and Scott come running in, forcing them to pretend to fight again. They both then reveal that Princess Char has returned from her vacation. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman from earlier arrives at the academy and asks her driver to prepare everyone for a welcoming ceremony. Within seconds, the news of Princess Char's arrival spreads within the White Cats, and they lay out a red carpet and throw confetti to welcome her. She walks up to Scott and asks him to act like a clown, but when he fails to make her laugh, she smacks him in the face. Persia enters the scene and welcomes her, and even though she's happy to see her, she's not so fond of the fact that Inuzuka and his squad don't give two Fs about her. She demands a warm welcome, but Inuzuka's got a knuckle sandwich ready for her face. Right before he lands, she quietly asks if he's dating Persia, which makes him freeze in his spot. He starts panicking and acts cool to thwart the rumor, but Char reveals she's printed out a picture of them together. Inuzuka is knocked out by the revelation, but everyone around them thinks Char used some special technique to beat him. She approaches him and promises to keep quiet if he agrees to her terms, saying he'll have to become her faithful hound if he wants to get laid. The man swallows his pride and does as asked, and while everyone else is shocked, Persia's more annoyed. While Hasuki slaps some sense into him, his own squad members start questioning his motives, thinking he's simping for Char because she flashed her chug jugs to him. Later, she brings a whistle and trains him to show up whenever she blows it. Despite being frustrated, he gets on his knees and begs her to stay quiet about him and Persia. Char treats him like a dog, explaining how his actions will make him lose all his popularity if people find out. Persia won't be able to achieve her dreams if that happens, which is why he must obey her. Later, as he reflects on his miserable life, Persia shows and asks him why he was acting so sus around Char. She asks if he likes women who are packing big jugs, but before he can explain himself, he hears the whistle and runs off to look for Char. She makes him carry her to the dorm on all fours, and the black doggies begin to wonder if he's joined the other side. Soon after, he rejoins Pija so he can explain himself, but Char blows the whistle again and sends him on a deer hunting mission. During all this time, Persia waits at the same spot for him until he arrives with many deer attached to his body. Once again, Char blows the whistle to call for him, and Persia tells him to go. Before he leaves, she tells him not to treat her the same way on their anniversary. This time, Char just wants to humiliate him in front of the White Cats, but he keeps a smile on his face and promises to get back at her. When he returns to his dorm, he discovers that the others have thrown his stuff out because they can't accept Char's lapdog as their leader. Turns out they wanted to lynch him, but Hasuki desperately protected him, so they all settled with kicking him out. The next day, Char forces him to be his lapdog yet again, and he plays along in hopes that he can find a weakness in her. However, Char not only outshines everyone in academics, but also in sports. Later, as she forces him to carry her like a dog, she suddenly asks him to stop, which confuses him. Soon after, Persia walks by with her friends, indicating that she doesn't want her to find out about this torment. That night, Persia shares a room with Char, so Inuzuka asks her to tell him more about her the next day. Persia reveals that she and Char have been friends for many years, but she's suddenly become cold after her return. Just then, Inuzuka hears the whistle and is about to leave, but Persia stops him. She doesn't say a word, but Inuzuka clearly understands how she feels and vows to put an end to this madness before their anniversary tomorrow. The next day, he makes a fake announcement to gather students outside the principal's office while he sneaks into Char's room to find a weakness. Just then, Char enters the room, already aware of his antics, but he hides before she can see him. She begins looking around the room and is unable to find her until Inuzuka pops out of the secret door behind her mirror. He reveals he ran into it by accident, and inside, he found dozens, if not hundreds, pictures of Persia. Turns out, Char's in love with Persia, and Inuzuka uses the pictures to turn the tables on her. As he continues mocking her, Char uses her woman card to make him feel guilty, explaining how Persia has always been her friend whom she cherishes, and she can't understand why she's dating a bum like him. She then begs him not to take her away, but they're both terrified when they hear a knock on the door. They hear Persia's voice outside, and Char falls to her knees, thinking she'll find out about the pictures now. However, Inuzuka tells her to buy some time, and by the time Persia enters the room, there is no trace of the pictures. Later, as Persia readies herself for the date, Char worries they'll have a fallout, but she assures her she'll always be by her side because they are best friends. After Persia leaves the room, Char opens the secret door and asks Inuzuka why he helped her even though she treated him like a dog. Inuzuka says he wants to blackmail her too, but most importantly, he also understands the pain of not being able to confess to someone you love. Despite the mutual understanding, Char declares that she will never approve of his relationship with Persia. Days later, Inuzuka regains the trust of the black dogs and gathers them for a 3-day study session so they can beat the white cats during the tests. Since he can't leave the dorm for the duration of this camp, he makes Persia disguise herself as Julio and enter their camp so they can stay together. As the two talk, Maru notices that Julio is the same guy who beat him the other day, so he decides to join the camp to avoid another beating. This creates tension between him and Inuzuka, but Hasuki shows up and tells them all to quit acting like the brainless clowns who argue over Saitama versus Goku. Julio is shocked to see her take the leadership roles so well, and Inuzuka explains how she becomes authoritative when she puts her glasses on. She then gives them all a test, and when Inuzuka falls asleep during it, she uses clippers to keep his eyes open. Meanwhile, Maru is using a cell phone to cheat, but when Julio says a man should face challenges with honor, he destroys the cell phones to impress her. As Hasuki continues giving lectures, Persia notices that no one has complained once, even when they hate studying. Inuzuka replies it's because Hasuki is giving her all to make sure all of them pass the exams, and everyone appreciates her for that. That night, Inuzuka helps Persia escape through the secret tunnels, but before they can say proper goodbyes, Hasuki comes running in to look for him. Inuzuka thanks her for her efforts, stating that he will pass the exams due to her lectures. Hasuki is relieved to see him go back to normal, and she comments that he looked so depressed that Char made him do those chores for her. She says she was worried he was keeping secrets, but Inuzuka nervously denies it, which makes her happy. After she leaves, Inuzuka is ambushed by Char, who is not too happy about the fact that he sneaked Persia into their dorms. She also mocks him for two-timing with both Persia and Hasuki, but Inuzuka completely denies having any feelings for Hasuki. Char then warns him to keep Hasuki in check, but Inuzuka knows she won't do anything to sabotage his relationship with Persia. However, Char says he would have told her about it already if he trusted her before leaving. Inuzuka admits he wants to tell her the truth, but she loves the black dogs so much that it might ruin their friendship. Later that night, Maru finds Hasuki studying alone in the hall, and she reveals she's making a quiz for the black dogs. However, Maru believes she's doing it for Inuzuka, which makes her blush. Initially nervous, Hasuki admits she had no friends growing up, and all she was good at was studies. Inuzuka was the same as her, but he couldn't even get his grades right. She offered him help one time, and from that day onwards, he started relying on her for private lessons. After he got good grades, the two became friends, and Hasuki became a popular student because of him. Now she admits she wants to repay his kindness, unaware that he's listening in secret. After Maru leaves, Inuzuka walks in, and she can immediately tell from his face that he heard everything. He asks why she goes so far for him, and Hasuki reveals it's because she's in love with him. Hearing this, Inuzuka gets all serious and realizes he can't lie to her anymore. He straight up tells her that he and Persia are dating, and after a brief silence, she starts yelling to spill the beans. Inuzuka quickly covers her face and lets go after she's calmed down. She then points at the pact they made that if they ever fall in love with a white cat, they will game end themselves. Since he hasn't done it to himself, Hasuki takes it upon herself to yeet him. She says relying on her with a secret was a mistake on his part, and she will purge him before he falls into the enemy's hands. Inuzuka immediately runs off and jumps out of the window before she can get her hands on him. Meanwhile, Persia sees the two playing Tom and Jerry outside and quickly covers her window so Char doesn't find out. Inuzuka eventually hides in the forest, and while he slips past Hasuki, Persia eventually finds him hanging from a tree branch. He explains the whole situation to her, but promises that he will protect her. Just then, Hasuki spots them and attacks Persia, only for Char to block her attack with her boot. She then reveals she also knows about their relationship, and even though she does not approve, she's watching over her to ensure she's not in danger. She adds that she's come here to game end Inuzuka, but the guy carries Persia in her arms and runs away before they can get to it. Once they get away, Inuzuka realizes he's a worthless loser like y'all who wanted to change the world but can't even convince his childhood friend. Despite his worries, Persia says he's not worthless and that they should face their problems instead of running away from them. She also says he has the power to change the world, backing it up by the fact that he changed her heart the other day. As she falls to her knees, Hasuki and Char show up, and Inuzuka declares that he will accept his fate. As Hasuki charges in, he declares he'll always be her friend no matter what right before it strikes him in the head. He then realizes that the sword is actually a replica, and Hasuki immediately starts crying. Before they can talk further, Persia gets on her feet but accidentally trips over the cliff. Inuzuka jumps after her and manages to hold her before they land in the water, but he passes out because he can't swim. When he wakes up, he learns that Char managed to save Persia, so his efforts to be her simp were useless. Hasuki angrily asks him why he jumped, and he says it was instinct, making her realize he sees Persia in the same light as she sees him, which makes her cry. She then throws a full-blown tantrum, telling him she hates him, and Inuzuka sits there in silence, allowing her to vent out. The next day, Inuzuka learns that his secret is safe with Hasuki, but he doesn't know how to face her. Just then, Hasuki shows up with a megaphone in her hand and starts throwing insults like yesterday, making him realize she's still the friend he's known for years. A few days later, the Black Dogs boys are practicing for the upcoming sports event to take down the White Cats, while the girls cheer them on. In the meantime, Inuzuka has locked Persia in the gym room, and she assumes he's dying to slap her kid. She starts to panic and says it's too early, but Inuzuka explains that all he wants is a handmade lunchbox from her. She gets all shy and agrees to make it, but when he asks what she was thinking about earlier, she imprints her hand on his face. The next day, he waits for Persia to show up and feed him with his own hands, unaware that Daddy's little microwave warrior couldn't cook an egg if her life depended on it. She has been at it since last night, but despite her failures, she continues to cook. Later, they meet at a barn, and she finally shows him what she has cooked, which looks rather professional. She then asks him to open his mouth so she can feed him, but when he doesn't, he finds himself biting on Char's boot. She says she never tasted Persia's cooking despite years of friendship, and he doesn't deserve to have it before her. She takes the box and runs into the forest, only to fumble it from her hands. Coincidentally, the box lands on Scott's head, and when Persia runs to him, he begins to think she made it to reward his secret training for the sports festival. Just then, Inuzuka kicks him in the face and takes the box back, but Scott thinks he's stolen it from him, which sparks a brawl between the two. Scott takes the upper hand, telling the story of how Persia changed him from a thug to a good boy, but Inuzuka doesn't give two Fs and pulls out a freaking tree from the ground to use as a weapon. However, he hits Scott so hard that the lunchbox goes flying into the pig's den, and they munch on it before he can retrieve it. Both Inuzuka and Scott are struck by this, but Char drags Scott away to use him as a plaything for the day. Meanwhile, Inuzuka realizes all of Persia's hard work has gone to waste, and the two apologize to each other simultaneously. Persia then explains that she can't boil water without causing a fire, so she had the kitchen maid cook in her place. Inuzuka is shocked and realizes he and Scott were fighting over nothing. Seeing his despair, she pulls out a bag of half-burnt cookies from last night, and he happily accepts them. Persia is embarrassed because she knows they taste horrible, but he keeps eating them and hides his pain, which shames her even further. Inuzuka then starts laughing, realizing that she is a normal girl with normal problems, and when she says she has to be perfect at everything, Inuzuka gently tells her that she can relax around him. Persia is extremely happy, but she hides it and tells him that she'll make him an exquisite lunchbox the next time. Later, the Black Dogs continue to practice while Hasuki coaches them. When the guys hit their limit, she uses her charms to motivate them, except for Inuzuka, who is too cool to sweat over it. Maru and his underlings show up, and they all agree that the sports festival is a drag. This is why the three of them have come up with a way to cheat and win without any effort. Maru also tells Inuzuka not to compete because he caused their loss last year, which starts another argument between the two. Hasuki watches this and explains to her friends how she's desperate to get her cookie eaten, so they advise her to aim for the Jinxum spot. The MUP is rewarded with a dance with the person of their choosing, and all the prior MUPs have all gotten laid with a 100% success rate. They then ask Inuzuka if he'd dance with her as she wins the MUP. But even before he can process it, Hasuki gets shy and leaves with her friends. Later, he notices the white cats practicing for the event, and Scott is aiming for the mini spot so he can dance with Persia. Inuzuka interrupts his out-loud thoughts because he wants Persia all to himself, and Scott uses this chance to diss him for his loss last year. Inuzuka gets furious and is about to punch him, but a mysterious girl steps in and blocks all his manliness with one hand. The girl in question is named Somali, who gets moist just from blocking the attack. His friend Abi follows, and all the pick-me thoughts start drooling over him like he's 2012 Justin Bieber. Inuzuka asks him who he is, and Abi reminds him they went to the same class for 10 years. After bragging about placing first in the men's beauty contest, he asks Persia if she would let him hit from the back if he wins the MUP. However, Persia slants his hand away, explaining that she's only attracted to mediocre men such as Inuzuka. Seeing this, Somali and Inuzuka head straight for each other, but Persia stops them, asking them to settle it at the sports festival. Abi doesn't understand why he's so upset, and then concludes that he must be in love with him. As the tension sets between the two, Abi and Somali take their leave and vow to take him down to the festival. At night, Inuzuka is on the balcony when Persia sends him a letter with an arrow, inviting him to the grounds at 5 in the morning. She wants help in the three-legged race, and Inuzuka immediately gets fired up because it'll give him a chance to get closer to her. The next morning, he finds her waiting and immediately compliments her ponytail. Without further ado, she ties their legs together, but when he accidentally glances her plot armor, he pokes his eyes out to erase his sin. After that, she asks him to put his arm over her shoulder, but their height difference is too much, which makes them highly incompatible for a race. She instead makes him hold her by the waist, which causes him a nosebleed. Persia then explains that she wants to win the MUP so she can increase her appeal, and Inuzuka gets motivated to help her. The two run together and perform very well on the first try, which takes him back to last year's festival. The points were even, and it was on him to win the 100-meter dash. But he was so hyped that he ran even before the whistle and completed the entire dash. When they redid the whole thing, Inuzuka was worn out from his first dash and got last place, which caused the Black Dogs to lose. Persia tells him that he can make up for the last time, asking him to relax around her the same way he expects her to. She even agrees to do one thing he asks if he wins the MUP, and that alone is enough to turn him into Barry Allen on steroids. On the day of the festival, Inuzuka is pumped to win the whole thing, while Somali and Abi are planning something sinister. Turns out that Inuzuka wants to win the whole thing so he can command Persia to call him by his first name, Romeo. In the opening ceremony, both housemasters are called to the stage to give a speech, and it is evident that they don't get along, much like everyone else in their clans. Meanwhile, Hasuki prepares for the first event when she runs into Abi, who tries to riz her up. However, Inuzuka sternly tells him to stay away from her, and even Somali starts beating him up for having eyes for other ladies. Soon after, Persia and the White Cats show up too, and everyone starts cheering at the standoff. The first game to be played is the tug of war, and the girls from both sides cheer for their respective teammates. Once the match begins, the Black Dogs quickly gain the upper hand by knocking the White Cats down. Despite that, Abi is not worried because he knows their anchor, Somali, won't go down that easily. She alone manages to get them back to their feet, but when Abi compliments her, she proves she's as stupid as she looks by leaving the rope in excitement. The White Cats go crashing down instantly, and Inuzuka's team wins easily. The next event is the athletic course, and Char is also competing in this one alongside Maru. The guy gets a head start and leaves spikes on the track to slow down everyone behind him, only to see Char being carried by her playthings for the day. Maru gets so frustrated that he starts beefing with the ref to call a deke, but Char finishes the race in the meantime, much to his frustration. As the games continue, Persia and Inuzuka both win their respective 100-meter dash, which wraps up the first half of the contest. The scores are even as of now, so the winners will be decided by the second half. During the break, Persia tells Inuzuka that her mother is in the stands, and if she wins the MUP, her father will definitely learn about it. She can't afford to lose today, but that won't stop Inuzuka from giving his all. He then wonders how he should introduce himself to Persia's mother, and she says she can do it later down the road, which makes them both blush. As the second half begins, both teams engage in a dramatic pole-dropping game, and Somali purposely sabotages Persia as per Abi's orders. Char runs in to check on Parisa, but she pretends to be okay, which worries her. By the end, the White Cats led with 50 points, and the commentators gave praise to Somali, who scored the win for the women's division. During the mixed relay, Persia and Hasuki are last in line, and Hasuki notices that Persia seems to be in a terrible mood, With the relays passed to them, the two give each other tough competition until Persia suddenly falls down, much to everyone's shock. Inuzuka immediately rushes to check up on her, but Char stops him midway to keep their secret hidden. While the others rush to the scene, Scott calls for a stretcher, but Persia insists she's fine and just tripped. Just then, Abi comes in and calls her out for being a failure, and others seem to agree with him. Even the crowd goes against Persia, and while Inuzuka has no choice but to watch from a distance, Char figures Abi is behind her injury and promises revenge. Persia is taken to the infirmary, and Inuzuka waits outside, enraged that there was nothing he could do to help her. Char reveals that during the pole game, she saw Somali purposely step on Persia's foot, and that's when she sprained her ankle. She also knows Somali does whatever Abi tells her to, so she's confident Abi is behind this sabotage because he wants the white cats to fall apart. Despite knowing all of that, Char feels helpless as she cannot do anything, and this ticks Inuzuka off even more. Inside the infirmary, Persia recalls her lost dream of becoming the Mimpi and cries nonstop. Just then, she hears Inuzuka's voice from outside, who asks him to watch his match. He then enters the arena for the last game, ready to wipe the floor with Abi. As the cavalry battle begins, Inuzuka climbs on Maru and begs him to drop their beef for now so they can beat Abi together. But the two can't seem to get on the same page. In the meantime, Hasuki and her girls outshine everyone around them, stealing armbands left and right. Just then, Abi snaps his fingers, which causes one of her horse girls to drop, allowing him to snatch her armband. With Hasuki eliminated, she observes how all the black dogs are falling one after the other, even Kohistu and Tosa, who haven't even participated in the match yet. Turns out, Abi used some kind of drug to make them weak, and now it's a 10 versus 3 in White Cat's favor. With Inuzuka in the dead center and on the verge of elimination, Maru refuses to cooperate until he heads Julio, urging them not to give up. This activates Maru's simp mode, and he finally agrees to work together with Inuzuka. One by one, they take down the White Cat's teams until both teams are down to Inuzuka and Abi. Just then, two of Abi's unit fall, and he notices that Kohistu and Tosa have used stun guns to subdue them. Maru explains how he felt something bitter in the water they had before the match and forced the water boy to spill the beans. He knew from the start that Abi set them up, but exposing him upright was boring, and he wanted to humiliate him in the match. With Hasuki being the only one standing, she leans into kicking Maru, but Inuzuka grabs her legs, noticing the spikes on her undershoe that harmed Peria. He then tells Abi to stop playing cheap and face him like a true man, but Abi starts yapping about how he was bullied for being fat. Inuzuka doesn't give a frick about his sob story and hurls him into the stands with just one hand, shocking everyone in the audience. The announcer is about to declare them the winner, but Inuzuka refuses to accept it until he beats the enemy leader, Persia. He calls her out, and Persia, motivated by his words, gathers her own team to face him head-on. Despite her injury, Persia acts strong and commands her team to charge, expecting Inuzuka to do the same because she made him promise not to hold back against her. As the two throw hands, Persia is held down by her injury, but continues to push forward, and her persistence earns him the crowd's support. Inuzuka pushes himself too and attacks her again, but Persia dodges it, accidentally letting Inuzuka squish her honkadonkas. Inuzuka has never touched a woman in his life, like Aniender views, so his brain short-circuits and he falls down, which makes Persia the winner. Later, she's declared the MEP of the tournament, while Inuzuka is treated as a war criminal for getting defeated Squish Ball. That night at the ball, Scott looks for Persia in hopes that she will ask him for a dance, but he runs into Char instead. Earlier, she told him to win or she'll shake him up, and since he lost, it's time to get a new haircut. Meanwhile, Inuzuka has made a beggar's camp at the fountain because he's been kicked out of the Black Dogs. While he's lamenting his life choices, Persia shows up looking like a fine piece of meat, and he apologizes for honking her horn. He then asks why she's not at the party, and Persia says she slipped away. She then asks him if he knows about the jinx of the MEP, and when he says he doesn't, she formally invites him to a dance. Since he doesn't know the White Cat dance, he shows him how they do it at the Black Dog House, and while he's making a fool out of himself, Persia recalls how cool he was at the tournament. Overwhelmed with the desire to ride his Coctopus Prime, she thanks him for the help and promises to return the favor. A few weeks later, the prefects gathered to discuss the sports festival because the competition across all 3 years has concluded in a draw. They also discussed the incident on the first day when Abi drugged the Black Dogs to make them lose. He got caught red-handed and lost all popularity, and his faction has fallen apart ever since. The Black Dogs representative proposes that they enforce strict rules to make sure this never happens, but the one on the White Cat's side puts all the blame on Inuzuka, which sparks an argument between the two. Meanwhile, Inuzuka gets a high fever because he has been hustling for the last few weeks, doing chores for the black dogs to earn their trust back. Hasuki is taking care of him, even though she knows he's reserved his pickle for Persia. Just then, a random guy informs her that a skirmish has broken out and they need backup. After she's dragged away, Inuzuka recalls how he hasn't seen Persia in a month, and he doesn't want her to see him in this state. Just then, he notices Persia in her Giulio disguise and convinces himself that he's dreaming. Persia looks visibly worried, especially when Inuzuka starts acting like a clown around her. She knocks some sense into him, and even though he starts acting tough, she knows it's an act and promises to nurse him back to health. She then notices that his room is a mess, and Inuzuka reveals he was moved to the storage room and stripped of his leadership after the sports festival. Just then, Giulio discovers a corn magazine featuring Big Ditty Mommies in his room, and he recalls Kohitsu leaving it at his desk when he was resting. He frantically explains that it's not his, but Persia doesn't buy his story. In his panic, he blurts out that he only cares about her melons, which makes him feel even worse. Persia is a little embarrassed and leaves the room to get him some water, but she gets distracted exploring the place because she's never been here before. Eventually, she locates the dining hall and returns with water and an apple, only to run into Maru, who asks what she's doing here. When she says she's looking after Inuzuka, he yoinks the apple, saying there's no food for that chump here. He then starts questioning Giulio's identity, wondering if she's really who she says she is. Assuming he's onto her, she throws the water at him and runs off, eventually stumbling into the women's bath, where they all mistake her for a boy due to her disguise. After a while, she makes it back to Inuzuka's room, all wet from the bath incident, and tells him to look away so she can change. The man tries his best not to be a peeping Tom, but his primal instincts tell him to go ooga booga, which earns him Persia's wrath. After she changes into his clothes, they hear Kohitsu at the door, but he decides to leave when no one responds to his knocks. Meanwhile, Persia quickly hides in the blanket with Inuzuka, but once she realizes the door is locked, she gets out and apologizes for being so reactive. Inuzuka is so close to paying his tributes that his fever goes up, and he recalls the last time when he almost died due to a fever. He remembers his mother singing him the Mockingbird song, and when he wakes up, he realizes that Persia is singing the same song to him. He asks where he heard this song, and she says it's popular in the West, and his dad often sang it to her when she couldn't fall asleep. As Inuzuka gets up, he realizes that his fever's gone, but his temperature rises when Persia places her hand on his forehead. After confirming that he's really okay, he thanks her for nursing him back to health but advises him to go because someone else might knock on his door soon. Persia sadly says that she has no idea he was sick when she sneaked in, which makes him wonder why she came here in the first place. Persia reluctantly admits she wanted to see him because they hadn't met in a while, which makes him as red as a traffic light. A few days later, two prefects, Kokyu and Tiria, study in the library while the girls around them talk about the upcoming fireworks festival where they plan to get their V-cards swiped. Hearing about it, they head to the main office where they ask the head prefect, Eru, to come with them to the festival, but he refuses because they have prefect duties. The girls argue that there is bound to be trouble at the festival, so Eru suggests they monitor it without him. Meanwhile, Inuzuka lies under a bench, quietly chatting with Persia, who's hiding down in the sewer drain. He tells her about the upcoming school festival and asks if she'd like to go with him, and she happily agrees. However, she says she doesn't want to attend as Giulio, since Maru might be there, which makes Inuzuka think she's not coming. Seeing his tears, she promises to sneak away from her friends so they can watch the fireworks together. Once she leaves, Inuzuka climbs out from under the bench and cheers loudly, feeling excited about the idea of spending time alone with Persia. Just as he celebrates, a girl suddenly falls from a tree and lands in his arms. When he asks who she is, she tells him to let her go because he's honking her horns. Inuzuka apologizes and explains that he didn't even realize where his hands were because she's flatter than Sakura. The girl gets angry and calls him rude, but Inuzuka shrugs it off and says she should be thanking him for catching her. In response, she bites him on the arm and refuses to let go. While he struggles to shake her off, another girl suddenly drops from the tree and lands right on top of his head. The girl who bit Kochu asks if he recognizes their uniforms, hoping he'll realize they're upperclassmen or even prefects. But Inuzuka is too dense to notice and simply asks why they're up in a tree in the first place. The other girl, Tiria, explains that they were trying to rescue a cat that had climbed up and gotten stuck. While they're still talking, Hasuki shows up, sees the girls, and immediately apologizes on Inuzuka's behalf. Inuzuka, clearly confused, asks why she's apologizing to these brats when he didn't do anything wrong. Hasuki explains that these girls aren't just second years, but they're also school prefects, which completely stuns him. Still, Inuzuka acts unbothered and says he's not afraid of them. Kochu finds his attitude annoying and asks what he was doing under the bench earlier, and Inuzuka, trying to act mysterious, says he was making plans with the ants. The girls look at him with concern, assuming he's so bad at rizzing up shotties that he started talking to bugs. Feeling bad, Hasuki even offers to introduce him to some of her friends, but that just upsets him more, and he storms off in frustration. Later on, Inuzuka walks into his dorm only to find both girls casually lounging inside like they own the place. He tells them to get out, but they ignore him, saying they just wanted to hang out. Just then, Tyria pulls out Persia's rosary and questions why he has it. In a panic, Inuzuka dives toward her to grab it back, but ends up accidentally pushing her onto the bed. Once he realizes the situation, he can't believe the two are twins since one of them is packing melons so ample she can start their own religion, while the other is a living surfboard. Furious but still composed, Kochu asks again why the rosary matters so much to him, but instead of answering, Inuzuka bolts out of the room, too panicked to think straight. The twins chase after him but lose track of where he went, so they decide to head over to the festival grounds to look for him there. Once they arrive, Tyria seems visibly sad because she also wants to enjoy, but her prefect duties prevent her from doing so. As they look around, they eventually run into Inuzuka, who runs off as soon as he sees them. Meanwhile, Maru is there with his friends, but when he storms off in anger, they think only a sloppy toppy from a goth monty will fix him. Persia is also wandering around the festival looking for Inuzuka, hoping to find him before the fireworks start. Just as she turns a corner, he suddenly jumps out of a bush and startles her, then quickly drags her in to hide. But in his rush, he steps on a stick, making a loud crack that gives away their location. Thinking fast, they duck behind a group of your mom and her friends to stay hidden. From there, the two start brainstorming increasingly ridiculous escape plans, like diving into the lake, swinging across trees like jungle animals, crashing through windows, or simply sprinting straight through the chaos of the festival. Eventually, they find a giant barrel and crawl inside, hoping to ride it out until the coast is clear. Inside the cramped space, Persia ends up pressed right against Inuzuka, and the feeling makes him want to increase the world population. Trying to block out the chaos in his head, he peeks through a hole in the barrel to check if it's safe. Unfortunately, the twins are still nearby, standing still, but still a little sad about missing out on the fun. When two delinquents start causing trouble, the sisters perform their prefect duties and discipline them with ease. Despite helping others, they feel out of touch because they can't enjoy the festival. Inuzuka sees this from the barrel and thinks of a plan to cheer them up. Just when they are about to leave, he jumps out of the barrel and challenges the sisters to a stall showdown. They refuse at first because prefects don't play games, but when he threatens to start destroying booths, they reluctantly agree. What follows is a ridiculous series of mini-games, and despite all the chaos, they start having actual fun and beat him in every game. By the end, Kochu complains that it's over too soon, but Inuzuka says that since he lost, his punishment would be playing with them again. Then, to their surprise, he admits he only invited them to play because he heard they don't really have friends, and he wanted them to enjoy the festival like everyone else. He gives them head pats and praises them for doing a great job, telling them it's okay to have some fun once in a while. A bit flustered, the girls run off, and that's when it hits Inuzuka that he completely forgot about Persia, who's still waiting in that barrel. He sprints back in a panic, only to hear the fireworks exploding in the sky. After the crowds clear out, he lifts the lid and sheepishly helps her out, apologizing for messing things up. Instead of being angry, Persia just smiles and tells him it's fine because she got to see a softer side of him. Wanting to make it up to her, he pulls out some handheld fireworks, and they end the night together, quietly lighting them and enjoying the peaceful moment. One night, Char marks Persia's birthday on the calendar, and when she returns from taking a bath, she finds Char in high spirits. Char says she's super excited about her birthday, and they'll hold a spectacular party for her. Persia hesitantly asks her for a favor, and Char happily agrees to do it, whatever it is. However, she's not too happy to oblige once she hears it. The next morning, Inuzuka decides to head to town to get a present for Persia, but gets startled when Kochu shows up out of nowhere. Now on guard, he asks where Tyria is only to learn she's been under his bed since last night. They reveal they have to run some errands in town, so Inuzuka frees them of their duty since he has to go there anyway. As he walks through the shops, he spots a small white stuffed cat in a store window and immediately thinks it would make the perfect gift for Persia. But just as he goes to pick it up, someone else grabs it at the exact same time. It turns out to be Char, and neither of them is willing to let go, so they end up pulling on it from both sides until it tears right down the middle. Inuzuka gets annoyed and blames her for ripping it, but Char throws the blame back at him and says it's clearly his fault. Their argument gets loud enough to attract a police officer, who shows up and tells them to keep it down. However, the moment he realizes that the girl involved is Char, his tone changes and he starts acting more polite. The officer then warns her that there have been some black dog radicals spotted around town, and since she's out without an escort, he advises her to head back to school for her safety. Char calmly tells him that she does have an escort and suddenly pulls Inuzuka into a nearby shop. A few minutes later, they walk back out, but now Inuzuka is dressed in a white cat's uniform and wearing a blonde wig to match. The officer looks confused and tries to question her decision, but Char confidently insists that Inuzuka is her official escort, so he lets them go without further trouble. Afterward, Inuzuka leads Char into a nearby alley and tells her that he's not happy about being forced into a disguise and being treated as a butler. Char shrugs and says she didn't have a choice, but Inuzuka says he doesn't care and starts walking off. Right before he turns the corner, she stops him by saying she'll tell him what kind of present Persia actually wants if he stays with her. At first, Inuzuka turns her down, saying he'll pick a gift on his own, but Char says he'll die a virgin if he gets her something she doesn't like. Curious and a little desperate to slap Persia's cookie, Inuzuka gives in and agrees to stick around. As they take a walk in the town, Char drags him into a plot armor store, which catches him completely off guard. He tries to act cool and uninterested, but when Char starts picking out different items and commenting on how good they'd look on Persia, Inuzuka quickly gets flustered. His imagination gets the best of him, and he even ends up causing a crime scene in his pants, but that doesn't stop Char from teasing him further. Their gift hunting turns into a battle between who can pick the most Sue's outfit and only ends in an argument. After they finally leave the store, arguing like a couple going through a midlife crisis, it suddenly starts raining, so they rush to find some shelter and end up hiding under the awning of a quiet building. When Kochu and Tyrion notice the rain, they say it was the right decision to send Inuzuka instead. As soon as they talk about the rosary they found in his room, Eru shows up and questions what it's about. Meanwhile, Char takes off her blazer and tries to wring it out, but she's not very strong, so Inuzuka offers to help. Unfortunately, he uses way too much force and accidentally rips the blazer in multiple places. Char is furious and calls him useless, but Inuzuka just shrugs and tells her to put it back on anyway. He also avoids looking directly at her because her shirt is soaked and see-through, which gives Char an idea. Noticing how awkward he's being, she leans in and starts teasing him again, saying that she's much more experienced than Persia and that if he dumped Persia right now, she'll give him a sloppy toppy so good he'll forget his own name. Inuzuka doesn't even take a second to think and flicks her forehead, telling her he wouldn't clap if she were the last woman on earth. Annoyed by the rejection, Char kicks him in the leg, and when the rain stops, she tells him she no longer needs his escort services and casually walks away without looking back. Later, Char gets to a quiet part of town, still thinking about the rejection, and realizes all her wishes were granted all her life due to her status. No one would question her selfishness, except for Persia, who openly called her out one day. Since then, she realized Persia is the only true friend she ever had and decided to rock, paper, scissors her, but without the rock and paper. Just then, two black dog radicals suddenly ambush her, but she quickly elbows the one who grabs her and knocks him to the ground. She warns the second one not to underestimate her just because she's a girl. But before he can even move, Inuzuka shows up wearing his usual black dog uniform. The radical assumes Inuzuka is on his side and asks him to help take Char down, but Inuzuka walks right up and smashes his head against the wall, declaring herself Princess Char's escort. Char looks surprised and asks why he came back to save her, and Inuzuka says it's because he knows Persia would be heartbroken if something bad ever happened to her. Char pauses for a moment, then bursts out laughing to make fun of him, but in reality, it's to hide her true feelings because she's realized he loves Persia more than she ever did. As the sun begins to set, Char tells Inuzuka that Persia actually wants to spend her birthday with him and quietly admits that she's jealous about that. She also admits she was happy being her friend, but now that she knows Persia shows him a different side of her, it pains her so very much. Even before he can offer a three-way, she shuts him down and hands him the shopping bag she's been carrying as a reward for escorting her. Inuzuka takes the bag, and after she walks away, he opens it up and is shocked to find a plot armor inside, which leaves him speechless. Later that night, as Inuzuka walks back toward his dorm, Persia's signature message arrow suddenly lands beside him. He picks it up, reads the note, and follows the instructions to meet her at the library. When he arrives, Persia greets him with a soft smile and asks if he wants to spend her birthday with her. Without hesitation, Inuzuka says yes, and when he asks what she wants as a present, she says she would love a pair of accessories they can both wear. Hearing that makes him happy, and he promises to get her something special. When Inuzuka returns to his room after the meeting, he's surprised to find Hasuki outside his room. As he looks inside, he finds Eru and the twins all standing there waiting to write him off a script. Turns out Eru is the head of the Inuzuka family and Inuzuka's older brother, and he forced the twins to spill the beans. He then asks him about the rosary, but before Inuzuka answers, Hasuki tells Era that she got this for him as a present. He then pulls out the plot armor Char left him, and Hasuki refuses to take the blame for this one. Eru also questions how he was acting like a dog around Char and questions if he is somehow colluding with the White Cats. He also explains how Tua and the West have a precarious relationship, and their peace treaty can crumble at any moment. During such times, if he's caught clapping White Cat shotties, he'll be branded as a traitor. In such a case, Eru says he will have to not only expel him from the school, but also from the Inuzukua family. When Hasuki questions his authority, he questions if she's also colluding with Inuzuka, but the guy strictly tells Eru to keep her out of this. He then lifts Inuzuka up by his collar, reminding him of all the times he's covered for her, but the twins push him to let Inuzuka go. In the end, Eru puts him under 1 week of surveillance, but Inuzukua starts to panic internally because he'll miss out on Persia's birthday. The next day, Persia continues to bake cookies until she gets them right, and the kitchen maid almost starts crying because she's seen how hard Persia has been trying for weeks. Later, she gives them to Char and Scott for taste testing, and they both love how the cookies turn out. Persia tries to hide it, but Char can easily tell she learned to bake them so she could give them to Inuzuka on his birthday. While she's teasing her for wanting back they notice Inuzuka and Hasuki walking with the prefects, which is very unusual. Even Kochu notices that he's acting very uptight when he's normally goofy around them. Inuzuka explains it is because Eru has been super strict with him since they were kids, and nothing has changed so far. Eru is so obsessed with disciplining him that he doesn't even let him take a leak in peace. The next day, Eru and Inuzuka walk past Parisa, and even when Inuzuka stops for a second, he doesn't say a word and continues walking. Later, Hasuki notices that Inuzuka is doing well to keep his secret hidden, but she is distracted by the loud noise from the adjacent building. Turns out tomorrow is Persia's birthday, and Scott wants to do something big and fancy so he can finally get laid. In the meantime, Inuzuka is getting beaten by Eru and Kendo, and while Hasuki watches in horror, Maru and his squad and amused to see him in this state. Later, Hasuki carries him to the dorm, giving him condolences for putting up with this torture, but it is all part of Inuzuka's plan to make Eru drop his guard. Hasuki realizes he's planning to see Persia tomorrow and sternly reminds him that it'll get him expelled. Inuzuka promises not to get her involved, but the real reason she's worked up is because she won't be able to see him if he's caught. Inuzuka promises her it won't happen and returns to the dorms, but Hasuki is still worried about him. Just then, Persia shows up and demands to know what's going on, and Hasuki has no choice but to fill her in. Close to midnight, Inuzuka sneaks out of the dorm and rushes to the fountain to see Persia, hoping he can spend an hour with her without being noticed. However, as soon as he crosses the main gate, he realizes his brother was waiting outside to catch him red-handed. He tells Inuzuka to get back to his room, but Inuzuka knows too well that Persia's cakes are thicker than blood, so he chooses the cheeks over the bloodline. As the siblings engage in combat, Inuzuka gets beaten up in seconds and is locked up for the night. When Eru leaves, the twins quietly open the door and tell him his plan has worked. Turns out, Eru has developed a habit of locking him up in the shed, so Inuzuka had prepared for it beforehand with the twins. Inuzuka then rushes towards the fountain, reminding himself of all the times he watched her celebrate her birthday from the sidelines. However, things have changed now, and he can celebrate it with her, which makes him happy. However, he starts feeling dizzy and collapses, only to wake up in Persia's lap. He's confused and asks why she isn't at the fountain, and Persia says she came here to stop him. Turns out, Hasuki told her everything, making her realize how much pain Inuzuka endured just for her. She realizes her desire to ride his pogo stick only brought him trouble, and she breaks down apologizing because all she wanted was to make him happy. Inuzuka tells her that she doesn't have to apologize, but she keeps saying sorry and embraces him. In the morning, Scott puts up banners and holds a birthday party after the classes end. He explains how she'll descend on a gondola with mist around her, and the marching band will welcome her. Then they'll reveal the stone statue they made in her honor, but the others question what they will do if the black dogs show up. Scott is confident he can handle Inuzuka, but the man immediately kicks him in the face and begins looking for Persia. After spotting her, he runs after her and ends up cornering her in the hallway, desperate to talk to her. She's worried they'll get caught, but Inuzuka doesn't care at this point and wants her to listen to him. But instead of listening, she gently pushes him to the ground and says she doesn't want to see him again. As she runs away without looking back, Inuzuka stays lying, accepting that he's going to die a virgin like y'all. Not long after, Hasuki walks by on her way to class and accidentally steps right on him. Shocked to find him pale and unresponsive, she panics and rushes into the school infirmary. Once he finally comes to his senses, he tells her everything that happened with Persia, and Hasuki, though calm, admits she agrees with Persia's choice. But after seeing how miserable Inuzuka looks, she decides they should ditch class and take a break from everything. Hasuki wants to cheer him on, so they start by playing a slow game of billiards together, and while Inuzuka barely reacts, Hasuki keeps chatting and trying to lift his mood. After that, they head to the school farm to see the sheep, but the animals want nothing to do with Inuzuka. Instead, they all crowd around Hasuki and start licking her. Later, they climb the bell tower for some fresh air, and Hasuki gets excited by the view and almost leans too far over the edge. Inuzuka grabs her just in time and pulls her to safety, but when she notices he's still holding her around the melon farm, she gets flustered. Trying to shake off the feeling, she moves away quickly and starts banging her head on the wall. Once she calms down, he suggests heading back to the dorm, but when Hasuki says she'd love to visit this spot again, he suddenly remembers Persia and falls quiet with sadness all over again. Meanwhile, Persia is sitting alone in her room, drowning in her own thoughts and missing Inuzuka like crazy. She's so deep in her feelings that she doesn't even notice Char walk in until she calls her name several times. Persia snaps out of it and apologizes, but Char immediately spots a box of cookies on the table. When she asks Persia about them, Persia awkwardly lies and says they're for herself, but Char sees right through it. After pressing her for the truth, Persia finally admits the cookies were meant for Inuzuka. She breaks down crying and says she hurt him badly, and that staying away from him is hurting even more. Char listens quietly, then embraces her and decides to do something. Outside, Inuzuka acts like a clown, so Hasuki stops worrying about him, but she begins crying because she sees right through him. Just then, Char walks straight up to Hasuki and smacks her jiggle physics, asking why she can't make Inuzuka fall for her even with these juicy melons. After that, she hands the bag of cookies to Inuzuka and explains that Persia made them for him the night before, but never got the chance to give them. Before leaving to get ready for Persia's birthday party, she tells Inuzuka to eat them. Inuzuka takes a bite after she leaves, and the taste hits him so hard that he starts crying on the spot. After he wipes his tears, Hasuki realizes he's okay now, and she can stop worrying about him. He then looks at Hasuki and asks if she's up for sneaking into Persia's party like they do every year, and she happily agrees. Later that day, Persia visits Kate, the student rep of the White Cats, but before she can say why she came, a student bursts in and says that the black dogs have broken into the dorm. Persia instantly tries to rush out, but Kate blocks her way and tells her to stay hidden because she's the one they're after. Downstairs, Inuzuka and his friends have arrived with pies in hand, yelling for Persia to come out. But before they can cause more chaos, Scott shows up with his own team of White Cats, also armed with pies, and the dorm turns into a full-on pie war. While everyone else is throwing pies like madmen, Inuzuka slips away and starts searching for Persia on his own. But since he's never been inside the White Cat dorm, he ends up lost and wandering the halls with no clue where to go. That's when Somali suddenly drops from above and grabs him in a tight hold, refusing to let go. Just then, Abi shows up looking like a smelly hermit and explains that after he got exposed during the sports festival, he was kicked out and has been living in the yard like a stray. He says he plans to hand Inuzuka over so he can earn his spot back in the dorm. Inuzuka isn't scared of Abi, but he can't seem to fight off Somali's grip. Thinking fast, he tells her that Abi is probably jealous of how tightly she's holding him, and since she's hopelessly in love with Abi, she immediately lets Inuzuka go and latches onto Abi instead. Inuzuka takes this chance to run. He makes it up to the 3rd floor, but more White Cat students try to stop him. That's when Kate suddenly appears and pulls him through a secret path leading to the roof. Inuzuka is immediately suspicious, especially since Kate is acting super weird, so he tries to run. But Kate tells him Persia is locked in the corner room on the 4th floor and says he just wants to help for fun. He admits that all the drama is entertaining and that Inuzuka's pie stunt is the most exciting thing he's seen in a while. Just then, another prefect named Sieber shows up with more students and scolds Kate for messing around. She warns Inuzuka to give up now because there's no way he's getting past them. Kate agrees and says things could turn into a real mess if Inuzuka decides to fight back. Meanwhile, Persia is still stuck inside the locked room, but she refuses to sit and wait. Her heart aches to see Inuzuka, and that feeling gives her the strength to push forward. So instead of waiting for the door to open, she heads to the window and decides to escape from there, no matter how dangerous it is. Back on the 3rd floor, Inuzuka keeps getting beaten down by Kate. But even with all the punches he's taking, he doesn't back off. Out of nowhere, he charges forward and throws his blazer at Kate's face. Kate easily bats it aside, calling it a weak distraction, but Inuzuka just grins and tells him to look down. That's when Kate realizes his legs have been tied together with a belt, making it impossible to move. While Kate's stunned, Inuzuka dashes to the window and leaps out of it, leaving everyone in shock. They all think he's completely lost it until they see that Persia is standing on the 4th floor balcony just below, and she catches him perfectly. By the time Scott rushes to the window to figure out what just happened, Inuzuka has already vanished. Meanwhile, the twins burst into Eru's office to report that a bunch of first years had crashed Persia's birthday. Outside on the White Cat balcony, Inuzuka and Persia finally catch a break and talk things out. Persia explains how she climbed out of her window to be there, and Inuzuka scolds her for doing something so dangerous. She snaps back, saying he was the one who literally broke into her dorm and jumped out of a window like a lunatic. Suddenly, she starts crying and admits she's terrified of what will happen now that his brother is involved. Inuzuka gently tells her that all he wanted was to wish her a happy birthday, but instead of being touched, Persia calls him an idiot for risking so much over something so small. As she cries harder, she finally confesses that she's in love with him. That makes Inuzuka tear up too, and he hugs her tightly. Later on, the two head downstairs and stage a fake showdown by smashing pies in each other's faces, claiming the match ends in a draw. The students cheer, but before the mood can settle, Eru suddenly appears and walks straight up to Inuzuka. He bluntly asks if the white cat girl he's secretly meeting is actually Persia. Both Inuzuka and Persia freeze in place. Eru begins listing everything that made him suspicious, and the crowd starts murmuring. Persia denies it, saying the clues aren't enough to prove anything, but then Eru pulls out her bra and says matching the size will be all the evidence he needs. The crowd explodes, with most of the anger aimed at Inuzuka. Kate jumps in and tries to calm things down, asking Persia to explain in private. As Eru starts pulling Inuzuka away, Inuzuka starts to panic, feeling like everything he's built with Persia is about to fall apart. Just before they're separated, he turns around to say something, but suddenly, a sword flies his way. He catches it on instinct and sees Persia holding its twin. She tells him to draw his weapon because she's challenging him to a duel to protect her reputation. Everyone is stunned, and Inuzuka hesitates, but Persia comes at him fast, forcing him to defend himself. Eru calls it a setup, saying they're faking the duel. As the fight continues, Inuzuka remembers Persia's love confession and realizes this duel is her way of protecting what they have, so he decides to take it seriously. Persia then points to her chest and tells him to strike, warning that if he misses, she'll take his life. Inuzuka says the same, telling her not to hold back. The crowd panics as the two charge forward, and both end up stabbing each other straight in the chest, leaving everyone speechless. That night, Inuzuka and Persia lie in the infirmary, pretending to sleep while Maru and the others wait outside. Maru tells the group that with the way they tried to kill each other, there's no way they're secretly dating. A moment later, Eru and Kate show up and tell everyone to go back to their dorms. They say visitors will be allowed tomorrow. After the hallway clears, Inuzuka and Persia sit up and pull out the broken pieces of their rosaries. Persia smiles through tears and says she's glad Inuzuka figured out what she meant when she pointed at her chest. It wasn't her heart, but the rosary she wanted him to strike. She says she was terrified they might be torn apart forever. But Inuzuka then pulls out a pair of rings and tells her they're his birthday present to her. He explains their promised rings and says he plans to become a prefect and change the school's rules. He places the ring on her finger and asks if she'll wait for that day. Persia throws her arms around him and promises to wait as long as it takes, and Inuzuka is so overwhelmed that it feels like his soul left his body from happiness. The next day, Eru and Kate report to their supervisors and get scolded for letting things get so out of hand. Eru assures them that it won't happen again and adds that Inuzuka and Persia have been placed under dorm arrest for a week. Once their punishment ends, Inuzuka and Persia secretly meet again and row a boat out to the center of the lake. As they sit under the open sky, Persia asks if he's really serious about becoming a prefect. Inuzuka tells her he already talked to Eru about it, and since he didn't get a clear answer, he's starting at the bottom by becoming the prefect's assistant. Persia listens, then gently slips the promised ring onto his finger and tells him not to give up. When she goes quiet, Inuzuka keeps pestering her to say something cute, and in the process he tips the boat and falls into the water. Persia quickly pulls him back in, and the scene looks quite romantic. Laughing together, Persia softly tells him that one day the world will accept their love, and Inuzuka holds her hand tightly, hoping they can call each other by their first names, Romeo and Juliet. That's it for this recap. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel for more. If you made it to the end, prove it by commenting "I love busty goth girls."